Good afternoon or good morning, as the case may be, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for standing by. Welcome to today's webinar, Admissions Process Automation and Best Practices. In today's session, we will learn how to improve student experience, increase revenue, and accelerate international student enrollment. During the presentation, participants will be in listen-only mode. Should you wish to ask a question, please do so using the chat feature located in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded and will be made available to participants at the conclusion of today's presentation. At this time, I would like to introduce our speaker, Franz Gandel. Franz is the Director of Professional Services for RICO Canada and has a long history of helping Canadian educators transform key business processes and academic workflows. Franz?
Thank you very much, Steve. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Folks, Canadian higher education is improving student experiences by automating credit transfer and exemption processes through digitization. I think the best example I've seen of that is Algonquin College. Back in the spring of 2013 in Ottawa, there was a scheduling manager named Marie who was working in the registrar's office at Algonquin College. She was looking for a way to improve the student experience and help the college stay ahead of the curve. One day, Marie wondered out loud, we use a ton of paper to process credit transfer requests. There has to be a better way. Now, with paper forms, students faced a long wait time to get approval or denial of their request, since paper was physically sent to multiple individuals for approval. Marie had learned that the college's HR department had implemented a content management system and were very pleased with it, so she worked with the vendor to see if the same solution could meet her needs to improve the admissions process. It could, and better than she expected, so she sought budgetary approval for the expansion of the system, and soon the system was implemented. Within 4 weeks of launching the new process, the registrar's office achieved a wait time of only 1 to 2 weeks and 90% of exemption requests, down from 4 to 6 weeks. And I think what I learned from that experience was that eliminating paper forms and automating processes can really help Canadian higher education be more competitive. And that's why I think you'll benefit from the webinar today. Global and local competition for students in higher education has become foundational. Competition from non-traditional providers such as online universities and technical schools is taking away potential applicants from traditional colleges and universities. Foreign students are increasingly becoming an important source of revenue, and the ability to attract and retain foreign students has become an important capability in a relatively static enrollment environment. So some key challenges that we're seeing is colleges and universities meeting but not exceeding enrollment capacity, labor and time-intensive processes, multiple incoming documents in various formats, including transcripts, letter of recommendation, applications, tactical versus mission-critical documents, and prioritizing that content. There's a challenge around the timely review of workflow tasks and approval. There's disconnected processes and systems, particularly with the SIS system. There's challenges around privacy and security of the information that's on the applications and supporting documents, but as well as who has access to that information. There's delays in processing, and that all leads to challenges around operational efficiency. Some questions to consider around the student experience that your college university is currently receiving are how are you currently managing student records? Does your school incur unnecessary expense to bring in temporary workers during admission cycles to manually process student applications? What are your current strategies for improving the overall student experience? How do you manage campaigns to recruit prospective students or engage alumni? How do you capture, extract, populate, route, and track, and respond to the diverse pieces of information you receive during admissions? Do you integrate legacy, paper-based records to support communications to alumni and other former students? What are your challenges in terms of linking information and enhancing communications across departments? Your processes still require paper or manual data entry? How might an automated interdepartmental workflow help improve process costs and delays? And so when we consider what's important, I think what comes to mind for me is meeting enrollment objectives, top priority, because it impacts the revenue that the college university can receive. But also it's the accurate assessment of those prospects in a timely manner so that we're attracting the right student and getting a high success rate. As well, we'd like to attract the diverse student population. And so, Steve, I'll turn it over to you to ask our first polling question.
Yes, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite you to take part of a live poll. Approximately what percentage of your admission processes are digitized today? So I'd invite you to click on the numbers less than 25%, 25%, 50, 75, or 100, and submit your answers. Okay. So here's what we're seeing. So it looks like the majority of people, less than 25% of their admission processes are digital today. About 20% say that a quarter of their processes are digital today. We have 27% saying that number is 50%. One saying 75, and no one at 100% today. So that gives you the range of where people are. You can see that there's still a lot of manual and paper-based processes involved in the registration process.
Thanks very much, Steve. So how do we address this challenge? I think that the way to address this challenge is to make this information work for you by implementing a student admission solution that covers off credit transfer and exemption that include core elements such as information capture, leveraging electronic forms, and forms that integrate with your current student portals, an information processing component that includes full text indexing and searching of any content type, a process of converting existing electronic and paper records, a process that we call backfile conversion, so that you digitize your existing paper records, and a solution that's flexible enough that it can serve as a standalone solution alone, be integrated into existing systems, or be delivered as a completely managed service. Let's take a little look at the content management applications for education. What we're talking about is delivering this workflow and automation of electronic forms and digital information through a solution called Enterprise Content Management. Enterprise Content Management has a very strong benefit in the registrar's office, and specifically around registration, exemption processes, admission processes, such as automatically filing and matching student records to supporting documents and transcripts, providing grade reporting and student records, automating process exemption requests and validating transcripts. It's also used to manage other areas of the college university, including faculty and administrative staff records for current and retired staff, as well as approval processes. And in the finance department, automating expense approvals, accounts payable processes. They can also be used to automate campus tour scheduling, credentialing, and tenuring processes. And our experience has been is that while you may begin by automating what's critical around student admission and enrollment, you might quickly realize that that same tool can be used to service multiple areas of the college university to deliver further automation opportunities. We've learned that some basic functional requirements that this solution should have are a system that can capture or scan records on your existing multifunctional devices or copiers, or capture information on a mobile device, such as an Android or an Apple mobile device, or on dedicated scanners. And the system should also be able to validate that captured data against known sources of information, such as your existing student information system or learning management system, such as Oracle or Banner or Colleague, these various systems out there. Next, the filing should be automated so that the digitized content is routed to the right person at the right time, and that file documents and folders are automatically named. This takes the end user, it automates common tasks like creating a folder, naming a folder, and those tasks tend to be prone to error. So by automating those processes, you get a consistent method of digitally recording the inbound content. A process workflow component manages the movement of that digitized content, and it should support calendaring and bring forward functionality so that documents don't get lost in the cracks. Essentially, we've learned that things need to be automatically escalated when they're not actioned. And having a system do the escalation and essentially nag the person for feedback receives higher compliance than a person actually doing it. And of course, it's a lot less time consuming. And finally, reporting is key to provide metrics and continuous improvement. You got to know where you can make the changes to improve the experience and to share the good news of the outcomes of the process change. So those are basic functional requirements. Let me share with you what we found also to be critical requirements as you explore this type of automation. The feedback has been that a system that provides a very straightforward and graphical user interface gains user acceptance in your admissions department and by your end users much more quickly and shortens the training curve to achieve product success. Multi-language support in Canada to support both official languages is obviously also a must. But beyond multi-language, remember that we're also looking at the international student as an opportunity for us too. So while you may be presenting your forms in both official languages to those international students, the supporting information and help files may need to be written in their native language. So the solution needs to be able to support that. Electronic records management standards will also guarantee that your implementation meets the various records management standards to ensure that archived documents meet standard record keeping requirements. And if you select a system that meets the DoD 5015.2 or Victorian Record Strategy VERS, then you're assured of that. A robust security set of features is also a critical functional requirement and should provide system access at the user and network level and integrate with Active Directory. Should secure access to specific folders, electronic digital folders, secure document access, and even secure down to the word level, such as identifying a credit card number or other string of information and securing that information to support HIPAA and other security requirements. In other words, the system has to respect your privacy policies and be ready to support future privacy policies. So Steve, again, I'll turn it to you for our second polling question. You're welcome.
Yep, thanks. At this point, we invite all participants now to take place in our second live poll. You can click directly on your screens and hit submit button to participate. What proportion of your student population comes from international students? Less than 10%, 10%, 15, 20, or greater than 20%? We'll give a minute for those responses to come in. Okay. Here's the results. So for most of you, less than 10%, for 40%, less than 10% of students are international students. Those schools that have a population of 10% is about a quarter of you now, 25%. We see 15% level, there are 16%. Those at 20%, just 7%. And those over 20% of schools with international students is 15%. So a bit of a mix of responses there. Great. Back to you, Bronze.
Thanks very much, Steve. In a recent, it's probably a couple years old now, there was a study done on international student enrollment across Canadian colleges and universities and identified that over the last 10 years, the average international student enrollment is doubled, and depending on what province you're in, you may have seen your percentage increase from 7% to 18 to 20% in some cases. And so we're seeing this obviously as well, and it's having a direct impact onto how colleges and universities are managing content and the process around approving exemption requests and admissions. Foreign students present a particular opportunity, but also a challenge then. Some of the challenges that are faced with international students includes cultural and language challenges, of course. We see a drop in academic and social status. challenges with pedagogy and expectations for learning, and unfortunately sometimes a lack of interest that some instructors show towards prior knowledge. We see study, dynamic changes, and participatory challenges, and occasionally social barriers due to the way that we present and we address the needs of international students. So some of the implications of international students are that the process tends to be even more prolonged and error-prone. For example, there are countries in the world that we are seeking to receive international students from where the naming convention is reversed. Last name is first name is last. And simple things like that can sometimes create challenges for us in terms of how we interpret the information that's submitted. There are lost opportunity. If we can't address these challenges because of the prolonged process, that candidate might be an ideal one for us, but might choose a different university to go to because we couldn't get back to them in time in terms of their credit transfer exemption request. Delays in processing also create challenges around retention of data, potential loss of credit, and can have a result of a disenfranchised candidate or student. And I think importantly is the revenue opportunity. Data shows that 30 to 65% delta in foreign student revenue versus domestic enrollment. And automating this process presents a significant revenue opportunity for colleges and universities in Canada. So with the discussion about the opportunity behind us, let's take a look at how the process can work. The first step in the process is to present the user with a simplified web form for credit transfer request in this case. The student would interact with this web form that is highly customizable to meet the particular college or university's color scheme and look and feel, and can be a standalone screen or be integrated with the student portal. So the student fills in their student number if it hasn't already been populated. The name and last name auto-populate through a lookup against the student information system to confirm accurate data. The student can update the email address that they would prefer to interact with during the credit transfer process. Student chooses the program and which auto-populates the program number and filters the appropriate courses tied to that program. And so the form already is automating what the student can fill in and is automatically validating along the way to increase accuracy. Any additional student input and comments can be added. And the student is also presented with an option to upload the course syllabus or other supporting content to support the request. The electronic form is then submitted and enters the Enterprise Content Management Repository into an incoming folder. At this point, the workflow system triggers a request to automatically review the data that was entered and begin the approval process. The naming convention of the incoming document, that form that was filled in, is automatically renamed to support the appropriate record-keeping naming convention defined during the consulting engagement and to meet the college university's requirements. And then it's routed to a shared queue, the all folder, which is the pending queue for all the credit transfer requests that the transfer credit assessing team are working on. The system provides the TCA and the entire team involved with real-time status on the approval process. You can see a column there called TCA approval status, as well as the faculty status, faculty chair status, and the various dates. And this gives the entire team line of sight to the precise status of a particular request so that they can easily field incoming requests for knowledge, or that those requests can be communicated to the participant submitter. In this demonstration, these screenshots, we're logged in as administrators so that we can see everyone's queue. However, if we logged in as a particular TCA, then, or we took a look at that particular TCA's queue, we can see that there's only 3 of those 7 requests that we'd seen before have been assigned to this particular TCA Tom. That's because the incoming submissions are automatically load balanced through a process called round robining and are assigned so that the workload on each of the TCAs is balanced. The system can automatically integrate so that if there is an absence of somebody on the TCA team, that documents won't be routed to them while they're absent. And it's also possible for TCA to reroute that request to another TCA in case they have to respond to a meeting request or something urgent comes up and they're not able to action these inbound requests. The system features a business process component that's a great feature to manage the history of a document while providing step-by-step insights to the users within the application. In this example, the business process is letting the transfer credit administrator get the transcript for review before moving this process forward. Note that on the right side of the screen is where each member within the process can input their decision from the drop-down menu. And this can be filtered so that only appropriate users have access to the right information. I think what's also important about the business process is that we let the team know precisely how long this particular request is taking. And we also let them know what the average duration is. And using this these key metrics helps the team improve their process by realizing what is the typical and what is a required service level for this process. And typically, this is not information that we could present to a user in a manual, paper-based type of workflow. The TCA can now go to the right side of the screen and review all of the documents that have been linked to the file. This is important because we want to present all the supporting information that was submitted along with the credit transfer request, or information that was found and added to the submission, because sometimes we get inbound information that comes prior to the actual request being made. We can link that together and make it really easy for the user to find those documents that are automatically linked together. There's an example of what a transcript looks like within the system. Now, once the TCA is satisfied that they can approve their step, the workflow system automatically sends a notification, in this case to the faculty member, for that particular program and course. So an email is automatically generated. The subject and the content of that particular email is automatically created by the workflow system to let them know that there is a credit transfer request that is outstanding for them to review. And this allows them to respond to that request via any device that they choose to use, whether that's a Windows PC or a Mac or an iPad or an Android device. They can receive this email and quickly go to that transfer request, review the supporting documents, and make a decision on behalf of that user, of that submitter. This allows the approvers to be anywhere and eliminates a significant barrier and time drag from having to approve physical paper records. Now, if additional information is required, the TCA can add those comments into their approval field, and an email is automatically generated to the student using the email address that they filled in at the beginning, informing them of the required information needed to proceed. In this case, we've indicated that they require legal first name and last name and some additional information, require reference. And we can also include in there an area for that student to complete the form and a link to that form, or if they require additional supporting information, a link to where they can upload that additional content. The faculty chair also receives a similar notification once the TCA and the faculty member have gone ahead and approved the request. And note that these emails are automatically generated, and they contain all the required information required to make the decision, such as the student ID, the student name, and so on. And of course, all the screens you're seeing and the terminology and language used is completely configurable to meet your specific workflow and exemption request requirements. Finally, once the transfer request has been approved, we can automatically send the student notification to let them know that their credit transfer request has been approved. We can also create a portal for those students to log in and see the status of their requests in real time. Once the credit transfer has been approved, we automatically file the transfer request and supporting information into the student record and dynamically apply a retention schedule to the documents based on the college university's retention schedule requirements. And that's done automatically and behind the scenes, but essentially it means that when that document is now due for destruction or is no longer required, the records manager is notified and those documents can be purged. This is an example of the screen that maintains the record keeping. In this example, this particular record series is cut off on a monthly basis, and the content is retained for 5 years. But again, the records retention is adjustable from any time period and any cutoff type, time or event, as well as adjusting for the to compensate for even permanent retention if required. The content that's stored within the content management system is also dynamically integrated with common student information systems. In this example, I'm showing Banner. Very helpful to integrate that document so that SIS users can quickly get to the student record information with one click from the tool that they're most used to and trained on. In fact, using a system like that I've just shown takes very little training, particularly where it's integrated with an existing SIS system. This type of integration also reduces keystrokes and user errors. It can be used to retrieve stored records. It can also be used to fill electronic forms like we saw a few minutes ago, and it can automatically be used to fill in that required metadata so that that student information can be captured using the information on the Banner or Oracle or other SIS system screen. Common integration points for us include those listed on screen here, such as Colleague, and Ellucian, Oracle, Genzabar, and so on. At this point, I'd like to share a success story with you. Algonquin College faced a challenge, as I alluded to in my story about Maria at the top. Their original process was very paper-centric. The student had to complete the appropriate form, they had to attach all the required documents, and then they had to join a lineup with their other fellow students at the registrar's office, pay the appropriate fees, and submit their request. Based on the form layout, the student could request up to 5 exemptions on a particular form. The client support officer, or the CSO, in the registrar's office processed the exemption application accordingly. They approved or denied the exemption, if authorized by the department, and then mailed the form and the attachment to the academic departments for their approval. Because of the manual nature of the process and because it was paper-based, this took anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to process an exemption application. And tracking progress of the exemption application was extremely difficult. The solution for Algonquin was to automate the workflow process by digitizing the content. Part of the automation validated against their existing Genesis database. They implemented an easy-to-use system that was student and faculty friendly, that was self-directing, that offered auto reminders for approval steps that had not been completed yet, as well as bring forward capability, and had real-time status notification through dashboard and reporting. They took advantage of the paper saving opportunity to promote the green capability and promote their green initiatives. And they linked it back to their objectives to be environmentally sustainable. The outcomes that Algonquin noticed is that from concept to production took approximately 2 years. They implemented the Laserfiche Enterprise Content Management System and took advantage of its workflow capability, which enabled tracking of exemption requests. The student response has been very, very positive and offered enormous efficiency improvements for the registrar's office, but as well as academic department staff and chairs. They surpassed the targeted time frame of 2 to 3 weeks, averaging approximately 5 to 7 days for a student or credit transfer request. RICO has implemented the Laserfiche content management system and workflow solution in over 15 higher education institutions across Canada, including Algonquin College, King's University, and Capilano. 21 K-12 school boards and divisions also enjoy the capabilities that the RICO Laserfiche system provides, and over 100 local and regional governments have implemented our solution. And we're proud to say that our customers have won awards for their innovative implementations of Laserfiche, including Algonquin College, the University of Toronto, and the Waterloo District School Board. Some other success stories include Dalhousie. At Dalhousie, they used Laserfiche to reduce the amount of physical storage space that student records were taking up. And they noticed that after implementing Laserfiche, only one copy of the record had to be maintained, and that record could be a digital copy. And it allowed their users to have secure and simultaneous access to that content. Capilano had been using a homegrown system to manage their records, and they saw significant time savings through digitization and scanning by automating the scanning process to digitize those records. And they've also integrated the system, Laserfiche, with Banner. King's College also embarked on a record scanning and processing, but has also automated their academic counseling profile forms and digitized those, as well as digitize their forms related to the English language programs. And at the University of Toronto Faculty of Medicine, they manage their student records, but also have automated their promotions approval process using Laserfiche forms and workflow. So you can see that there's some common themes here that are fundamental about using Laserfiche to save time and save space in storing records digitally, but then taking advantage of the system to automate approval processes, automate common processes in various departments to achieve even more benefit. And one of those key areas we're seeing more often now is in the admissions department and in the credit transfer workflows. RICO's had a long-standing relationship that dates back to 1997 with Laserfiche. We are a premier partner of Laserfiche and provide pre-sales design and demonstration support for all of our charter accounts. We also provide level 2 client support, and we have Laserfiche trained implementation resources. Laserfiche offers some excellent resources for higher education, including Quicker, Better, Safer, Laserfiche Solutions for Higher Education, and Laserfiche has been chosen by University Business as a top product. At this point, Steve, I think it's an appropriate time to open the floor for any questions.
Yep, great. Thanks, Franz. It really sounds like you have a very robust and agile tool to help automate and track key business processes in education, and you certainly had some great outcomes there. What I'd like to do is invite our audience today to ask some questions. I see the first one coming in right now. Franz, can all registrars' office forms be digitized and brought into our SIS? Example, substitute grade reports, alternative course allowances for degree, audit, etc.
Yes, absolutely. So any form or any document can be digitized and brought into this work process. So including the forms, the documents mentioned. If it's a paper document, then we'll use a multifunctional device or dedicated scanner to essentially take a picture of that paper record and digitize it. If it's already electronic, such as something that was submitted by email, then that document can be easily imported directly from the email system and that electronic copy kept in that format. In either case, all the content within the document is automatically made full text searchable and linked to the original credit transfer or the original application request.
Great. I have another question here. Can you talk about the integration of the solution with OMSAS at the University of Toronto Med School?
So we integrate with a number of different systems through the Laserfiche connector as well as through the workflow integration to do validation and to capture incoming documents. So I think that would address that question that way. If there's additional details, then I can engage the implementation team to support further details around that question, Steve.
Okay, great. Another question I have here, Franz, is will your solution allow staff to access documents remotely? If so, what sort of security controls might be in place?
Yes, great question, Steve. So one of the real benefits of having all this content digitized is that you can securely share the content with users. And so securely means that we can integrate the solution with a common security profile, such as Active Directory or Shibboleth, and that information can then be securely available on a mobile device, such as an Android or iPad or Windows device. And only the content that user is allowed to see will then show up for them to view. And only the functions that they're allowed to use will be displayed.
Okay. Another question, Franz. Does the solution integrate with a solution for electronic signatures?
Yes, it does. The solution integrates with common e-signature providers such as DocuSign, eSign Live. There's at least 3 or 4 solutions that it integrates with. And for internal digital signatures, it also can leverage Laserfiche's own digital signature protocol, best used for internal users that identify against Active Directory.
Okay, terrific. Okay, that seems to be the end of our questions. And just as a reminder, you'll all be receiving a copy and a link to this presentation. I want to thank all participants today for attending, and we hope you found it informative and have some insights, some new insights to take away. Would invite you, those of you who are planning on going to the Western Association of what's the acronym, Franz? With the War 2017.
Western Association of Registrars. Yep.
Okay. The conference is coming up in June. We'll be there as a exhibitor presenter, so be happy to speak to you there. If you have any follow-up questions, I would ask you to feel free to reach out to our subject matter expert, Franz, directly. His coordinates are on the screen here today. And I want to thank you all for your participation again, and have a great day.